Morning all. I'd like to continue my series on chess traps by looking at a wealth of potential chess traps in what is known as the Queen's Gambit, which is not really a gambit, so it really sets the scene psychologically for the opponent being tempted to play losing moves, which is the essence of trying to trap the opponent. So when you play d4, a lot of you may play e4. I never actually played d4, but if you did and the opponent replies classically with d5, if you play c4, you're not really gambiting the pawn, because it's quite well known that if black tries to cling on to the pawn, black could do real damage to his or her position. And this actually demonstrates something, a more fundamental idea actually, from the art of war, that you really shouldn't go onto the attack until you first put yourself beyond defeat. And here, if black really takes this pawn, thinking that this is a gambit, why can't I just take this pawn? Now white has a very, very cautious move, trying to regain material with e3. And here, if black really thinks this is a gambit, then the psychology of the trap has been set. So black might want to try and cling on to the pawn in two ways at least. Bishop e6 is not very good. It hems in this bishop. White's best is not trying to win the pawn now, but rather to play positionally. For example, knight f3, and black, if he wants to develop the king side, for example knight f6, and try and do something about this bishop now on f8. Now here, white is gaining a big advantage with knight g5, just attacking that bishop, threatening horribly to double pawns or win the valuable bishop. And for example, bishop d5, we now have e4, and this is not very pleasant at all for black. If the bishop goes back to c6, then we can just take on c4. So that's not very adequate. This bishop e6 is awkward. It's blocking in this bishop on f8. White's best is just to naturally develop both knights and aim for knight g5. But another tempting way of clinging on to this pawn on c4 is to play b5. Now you might think, well, what has the art of war principle got to do here? Well, we have here black trying to do something quite ambitious, an ambitious operation of holding on to the pawn, but there's actually fundamentally liabilities here. Black is not beyond defeat here, but is trying to do something quite active. These pieces are vulnerable, the rook and the knight here, and it's giving white potential undermining now of these pawns. And there's a very, very key move here to undermine this pawn chain, which echoes pawn chains generally, that to make it collapse, you try and undermine the pawn chain at its exploitable base. So here, a4 tries to undermine this pawn chain quickly. And together with these liabilities, these unprotected pieces, this is very, very difficult for black to do anything about. a6, well, we just play a takes, and black cannot reply here because we just lose that rook. So that shows that rook on a8. It's not yet protected. If only black had bishop b7, then that would have worked. Black is not beyond defeat. These are tactical liabilities. And you might think, well, hold on, can black not just play c6? Let's try c6. Well, this is not good as well. Remember, these are tactical liabilities, unprotected pieces. A takes b, c takes b, and can you spot what white can play here to exploit the a8 rook? If I give you 10 seconds, starting from now. Yep, I hope you guessed it. Queen f3, and it's very, very difficult for black not to lose material here. He's forcibly losing material. You might think, okay, hold on. Surely black can try and cling on to this pawn chain by making the bishop kind of form part of the virtual pawn chain with bishop d7. This again can have terribly bad consequences for black. The key thing is a takes b, bishop takes b5, and now the crushing move for white, the absolutely crushing move, the most crushing move is knight c3, especially if black is really desperate to cling on to this c4 pawn. Black's best is just to get out of here with bishop c6 or bishop d7, bishop c6. But if black really wants to cling on to the pawn now with bishop a6, there's an absolute crusher of a move here I wonder if you can spot it. There's actually two moves which give white a huge advantage. One is more incisive though than the other. So what is the most incisive way to exploit black's slight tactical liabilities here? If I give you 10 seconds here. Okay, the most incisive way is again this queen f3. Here, trying to shield the rook doesn't work. If c6, can you guess what white plays in this position? If I give you 10 seconds here. Okay, white just plays rook takes a6, winning loads of material, winning a whole bishop, because if black dares take, then queen takes c6 check. How embarrassing. Queen d7, we just take this rook with check, and we can even come back to eat the knight like this. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And funny enough, there's another way here to exploit black as well, but this is the most crushing. But there's also rook takes a6, just for the record, because knight takes a6, we can win 2 pieces for the rook, but clearly it's not as strong as the queen f3 continuation. We've only won 2 pieces for the rook, but we are getting c4. It is a crushing advantage, but the most crushing is queen f3, which is the most embarrassing for black's whole clinging on to the pawn strategy here. Queen f3, absolutely decisive. If the knight moves for the queen to protect the rook, then we just play rook takes a6. It just shows the art of war principle that you can't really try and do active operations until you put yourself beyond defeat. And here the concrete aspect of that is these kind of loose pieces which can be exploited if black's trying to cling on to this c4 pawn. So this is fundamental trap territory, a wealth of trap territory in what is a very, very simple, kind of misnamed opening really. It's not really a gambit. The whole thing is not really a gambit because white is getting back the pawn unless black wants to really, really damage his position in the way it's just shown. So I hope you got something from that. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.